Imagine waking up to a day that belongs entirely to you. No one is forcing you into a specific path. No external force is dictating what you should do. Yet instead of feeling liberated, a strange weight presses down on you. You hesitate before making simple choices. You second-guess your actions, replaying past conversations in your head. You feel like every step you take carries an invisible pressure, as if something enormous looms just beneath the surface of your consciousness. This feeling, this quiet but persistent unease, is not unique to you. It is one of the defining struggles of modern life. But what if this anxiety isn't just an unfortunate byproduct of your circumstances? What if it is something much deeper? Something woven into the fabric of human existence itself? Jean-Paul Sartre, one of the most radical thinkers of the 20th century, believed that anxiety is not simply a mental health issue or an occasional discomfort. It is a fundamental part of what it means to be human. Most of us think of anxiety as something to be fixed, controlled, or eliminated. We seek relief through distractions, routines, and reassurances from others. But Sartre suggested that anxiety is not something that should be numbed. Rather, it is something that should be understood. Because at its core, anxiety is not just about fear or uncertainty. It is the byproduct of something far more profound: freedom. We are conditioned to see freedom as something exhilarating, something empowering, the ability to make choices, to carve out our own destiny, to define who we are. These are ideals we celebrate. But what we often fail to acknowledge is that with this complete freedom comes an overwhelming burden, responsibility. Every moment, whether we realize it or not, we are actively shaping our lives through the choices we make. There is no predetermined path, no set script, no absolute authority telling us what we must do. Every decision, what career to pursue, who to love, where to live, how to spend our time, contributes to defining who we are. And that realization, Sartre argued, is terrifying. This is what he called anguish, a deeper form of anxiety that arises when we fully comprehend that we alone are responsible for who we become. No divine plan, no external force, no grand design is dictating our fate. The weight of our existence is ours to carry, and there is no escaping it. This might explain why so many people feel trapped, even when they have what appears to be endless possibilities before them. With every choice comes the responsibility of knowing that things could have been different. The question of what if lingers in our minds, creating a restless, unshakable sense of unease. Consider the way most of us try to escape this anxiety. We fill our days with distractions, work, entertainment, social media, endless conversations about things that don't truly matter, all to avoid confronting the deeper question, am I making the right choices? Sartre believed that many people avoid acknowledging their own freedom by falling into what he called bad faith, a state in which we deceive ourselves into believing that we are not truly free. We tell ourselves that we have to stay in certain jobs, relationships, or routines because we have no other choice. We convince ourselves that we are simply products of our past, bound by circumstance, unable to change. But in reality, Sartre argued, we are always choosing. Even in moments when we feel stuck, we are making the choice to remain where we are rather than take a different path. This realization can be both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it removes the comfort of external excuses. We can no longer blame fate, destiny, or society for our condition. We are fully accountable for who we are. But liberating, because it means that we are not bound by anything except our own willingness to act. Even the prison we believe ourselves to be trapped in is, in many ways, one of our own making. But if this anxiety is inescapable, what can we do with it? Sartre believed that the key was not to suppress or eliminate it, but to confront it head-on. Rather than viewing anxiety as something negative, we must recognize it as a sign that we are standing before an open door, one that leads to authenticity, growth, and true self-determination. Anxiety arises because we are aware, at least subconsciously, that the life we live is ours to shape. It is not a sign of weakness. It is the price of being fully human. And so the question is not how to escape anxiety, but how to engage with it in a way that pushes us forward rather than paralyzes us. Because if we can learn to live with this weight instead of running from it, we might just find that anxiety is not our enemy. It is the very thing that points us toward our most authentic life. But what does it really mean to live authentically? If anxiety is the price of freedom, then authenticity is its reward. But if that's true, why do so many people avoid living authentically? Why do we cling to routines, expectations, and roles that don't truly reflect who we are? Sartre believed that most people spend their lives running from their own freedom, not because they lack the ability to change, but because change demands something terrifying: the responsibility to define ourselves. Imagine standing in front of a blank canvas, brush in hand. At first, the endless possibilities might seem exhilarating, but then the weight of choice sets in. What if you ruin the canvas? What if you choose the wrong colors? What if, after all your effort, the painting still doesn't feel right? This is the predicament of human existence. Every action, every decision contributes to the artwork that is our life. And instead of embracing this power, most of us hesitate. We allow others to decide what should go on the canvas. We follow paths laid out for us, accept expectations without question, and slowly, without realizing it, we become characters in a script we never wrote. Sartre called this living in bad faith, the act of deceiving ourselves into believing that we are not truly free. A person in bad faith tells themselves, "I have no choice," when, in reality, they are choosing passivity. They say, "This is just who I am," as if identity were something fixed rather than something constantly created. They seek validation from society, from authority, from traditions, because taking full responsibility for their own existence is too overwhelming. One of Sartre's most famous examples of bad faith is that of the waiter who plays the role of a waiter too well. He moves too mechanically, his gestures too rehearsed, his speech too scripted. He is not simply a person who works as a waiter, he has become the waiter, absorbed into a role that defines his entire existence. He is no longer choosing to be himself, he is performing a character. This, Sartre argued, is how many of us live. We are not just playing roles, we are letting those roles consume us. We say, "I'm just a shy person, I'm just a worker, I'm just a parent," as if these labels were cages rather than choices. The truth is, we are always more than the roles we play. The problem is that stepping outside of them feels like stepping into chaos. Sartre argued that authenticity is not about discovering a pre-existing true self. It is about recognizing that you are the author of who you become, and this is where anxiety resurfaces. Because if you are responsible for defining yourself, then the safety of labels disappears. You can no longer hide behind the comfort of, "I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do." Instead, you must ask yourself, what do I actually want? And that question is terrifying, because once you ask it, you can no longer pretend you don't have a choice. You can no longer blame circumstance, luck, or fate for the life you live. The world is no longer something that happens to you. You are something happening within the world. This is why so many people resist authenticity. It requires letting go of the narratives that have kept us comfortable. It forces us to confront the fact that much of what we've accepted as just the way things are is actually just the way things have been chosen to be. The family expectations that shaped you, the career path you feel obligated to follow, the opinions you hold without questioning. These are not absolutes. They are constructs. They can be reshaped, redefined, or discarded altogether. But doing so requires facing the unsettling truth that everything is open-ended, that no one is coming to tell you what to do, that your choices define your reality. For some, this realization is liberating. For others, it is paralyzing. Sartre knew that many people, when confronted with their own freedom, retreat into the safety of external validation. They follow social norms not because they believe in them, but because questioning them would mean stepping into the unknown. They stay in relationships that no longer serve them, pursue careers that drain them, and maintain beliefs they no longer truly hold. Because changing would mean acknowledging that they have always had the power to do so. But here is the paradox. The more we run from this responsibility, the more anxious we become. Living in bad faith creates a deep, unconscious tension. we sense that we are betraying ourselves, that we are avoiding something essential. And so, the anxiety we were trying to escape comes back even stronger, not as the anxiety of choice, but as the anxiety of living a life that does not feel like our own. If living in bad faith causes anxiety, and authenticity is the way out, why do we struggle so much to break free? Sartre believed that the chains holding us back are not physical, but psychological. They are built from our fears, our conditioning, and the silent pressure of society. These forces are so deeply ingrained that we often don't even recognize them, we just feel their weight. From the moment we are born, we inherit a world of rules, expectations, and beliefs. We are taught how to behave, what to value, and who we are supposed to be. We absorb these lessons without question because, at first, we must. As children, we depend on others to survive. We learn that approval brings safety, while disobedience invites rejection. Over time, this conditioning shapes our identity. We internalize the voices of parents, teachers, authority figures, and culture itself. And without realizing it, we start confusing these external voices with our own. This is how the illusion of certainty is created. The world seems structured, clear, and predictable until we begin to question it. Sartre argued that most people never truly escape this conditioning. Instead, they continue playing the roles they were given, afraid to deviate from the script. They convince themselves that their choices are limited, that their lives must follow a predetermined path. They avoid difficult questions because asking them would require dismantling the entire framework they have relied on for security. But security comes at a cost. When we conform too much to the expectations imposed on us, we lose touch with our own desires. We become strangers to ourselves, disconnected from what we truly want. This disconnection breeds a different kind of anxiety, the quiet, gnawing feeling that something is missing. We sense that our lives do not quite belong to us, but we do not know how to reclaim them. And so, we distract ourselves. We bury this unease under routine, entertainment, and social validation. We tell ourselves that we are happy, that everything is fine, that this is just how life is. Sartre saw through this illusion. He believed that deep down, we always know when we are lying to ourselves. That is why anxiety never truly disappears. It lingers beneath the surface, waiting for the moments when silence forces us to confront it. Late at night, when the distractions fade. In the quiet moments of reflection, when we realize we are not as fulfilled as we pretend to be. This is when the weight of inauthenticity becomes unbearable. But even when we recognize this, change is difficult, because escaping bad faith is not just about thinking differently, it is about acting differently, and action is what terrifies us the most. Sartre argued that freedom is not something we passively discover, it is something we must actively seize. And the moment we take responsibility for our own choices, we can no longer blame anything or anyone else. This is why many people resist change. It is easier to believe that we are trapped by circumstance than to accept that we are trapping ourselves. One of the strongest forces keeping us stuck is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of regret. If we redefine our lives, what if we make the wrong choices? What if we disappoint others? What if we lose everything we have worked for? These fears are powerful because they are rooted in the unknown. When we live in bad faith, we at least have the comfort of familiarity. Even if our lives feel hollow, they are predictable. But to embrace freedom means stepping into uncertainty. It means taking risks without any guarantee of success. Sartre believed that this fear is an unavoidable part of being human. To exist is to be confronted with the unknown, and there is no escape from it. But he also argued that we have a choice. We can either let fear control us, or we can move forward despite it. This is the difference between a life of avoidance and a life of meaning. A life where we remain prisoners of our conditioning, or one where we take ownership of our existence. But how do we begin? How do we break free from the invisible chains of bad faith? Sartre's answer was simple but difficult. Take action. Start choosing, not out of obligation but out of genuine desire. Question everything you have taken for granted. Stop waiting for permission to be who you are. Freedom is not something given to you, it is something you must claim. If we are truly free, and if our anxiety stems from avoiding that freedom, then the solution seems simple. Embrace it. Choose authentically. Live according to your own values. Yet, as Sartre made clear, this is far easier said than done. Freedom is not just liberating, it is terrifying, and most people, when faced with the weight of true freedom, retreat into old patterns of avoidance. When you take full responsibility for your choices, you eliminate all excuses. You can no longer blame your parents, your upbringing, your past, or the limitations of your circumstances. You must confront the fact that your life, exactly as it is right now, is largely the result of your own decisions. This realization can be empowering, but it can also be paralyzing, because once you accept your own agency, there is no one left to shield you from the consequences of your actions. Sartre believed that most people run from this responsibility. They convince themselves that they are trapped, that their options are limited, that they cannot break free. But this is not reality. It is bad faith. It is the illusion of helplessness, designed to protect us from the terrifying uncertainty of true choice. Because when you truly embrace your freedom, you must also accept that there are no guarantees. Every choice you make carries the risk of failure. Every decision means abandoning another path. This is why so many people hesitate when faced with the unknown. They fear regret. They fear making the wrong choice. But Sartre's response to this fear was radical. There is no right choice. There is only choice itself. You do not find meaning in life by waiting for a perfect answer. You create meaning through action. To live authentically is to stop waiting for certainty and to start embracing the fact that life is uncertain by nature. If you are always waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, the perfect answer, you will wait forever. The paradox of freedom is that it demands both courage and responsibility. Courage because you must act without knowing the outcome. Responsibility because you must own the consequences of your actions. Sartre called this the burden of freedom, the realization that every choice you make defines who you are. Your identity is not fixed. It is not something you are given at birth or something determined by fate. It is something you construct moment by moment through your decisions and actions. This is why anxiety is so deeply connected to inauthenticity. When you refuse to choose for yourself, you become a spectator in your own life. You go through the motions, following the path laid out for you by others, while a quiet unease lingers in the background. You feel disconnected, restless, uncertain, not because life is meaningless, but because you have not yet taken responsibility for creating your own meaning. But how do you begin? How do you take ownership of your existence when you have spent so much time avoiding it? Sartre's answer is simple, but difficult. You must start acting as if your choices matter, because they do. Instead of endlessly questioning your identity, start making decisions that define it. Instead of waiting for certainty, step forward despite the uncertainty. Instead of fearing regret, accept that regret is an inevitable part of existence, and that the only real mistake is failing to act at all. This means breaking free from the scripts you have been given. It means questioning everything you have taken for granted about yourself. It means asking, am I living the life I truly want, or am I simply playing the role that has been assigned to me? If your life does not align with your deepest values, you have the power to change it, not tomorrow, not next year, but right now. Because every moment of hesitation is another moment spent in bad faith, another moment spent avoiding the responsibility of freedom. Of course, this does not mean recklessness. Sartre was not advocating for impulsive, thoughtless action. He was advocating for intentionality, for living deliberately, with full awareness of the choices you are making. The goal is not to abandon all structure or destroy everything familiar. The goal is to consciously decide what to keep and what to leave behind, to reshape your existence into something that feels real, something that is truly your own. This is the essence of authenticity. It is not about having all the answers. It is not about being fearless. It is about acting despite fear, despite uncertainty, despite the fact that there are no guarantees. To live authentically is to accept that freedom is both a privilege and a burden, and to embrace it anyway. If Sartre is right, if there is no inherent meaning in the universe, then the question becomes, how do we create meaning for ourselves? This is the problem that has haunted humanity for centuries. People have searched for meaning in religion, ideology, relationships, careers, and personal achievements. But Sartre's philosophy rejects the idea that meaning is something external, something we must find. Instead, he argues that meaning is something we must create. This is where existentialism diverges from other philosophical traditions. It does not tell you what to believe. It does not offer a predefined path or set of values to follow. Instead, it forces you to confront the fact that you alone are responsible for determining what gives your life meaning. This is both terrifying and liberating. There is no cosmic guidebook, no ultimate truth waiting to be uncovered, only the choices you make and the actions you take. So, what does it actually mean to create meaning? Sartre's answer is action. You do not construct meaning through abstract thought alone, nor do you uncover it through passive contemplation. Meaning emerges when you commit to something, when you take responsibility for your choices and throw yourself fully into them. To Sartre, meaning is not something you possess, it is something you do. It is not about waiting for the perfect purpose to reveal itself. It is about acting as if your actions already have purpose. If life has no built-in meaning, that does not mean it is meaningless. It simply means that the meaning of your existence is the meaning you choose to give it. But this raises a problem. How do you know what is worth committing to? If there are no universal values, no objective truths, then how do you avoid nihilism, the belief that nothing matters at all? Sartre's response is that nihilism is itself a form of bad faith. The belief that nothing matters is just another way of avoiding responsibility. It is easier to say that life has no meaning than to take on the difficult task of creating it. But if you truly accept your own freedom, then nihilism is no longer an option. The very act of choosing means that your choices matter. They matter because you make them matter. This is why Sartre believed that authenticity is the highest form of existence. To live authentically means to align your actions with your deepest values, to commit fully to the things that you decide are important, not because society tells you they are important, not because tradition dictates them, but because, after deep reflection, you have decided they are meaningful to you. And this is where anxiety returns. Because if you alone are responsible for creating meaning, then there is always the risk of choosing wrong. This is why people hesitate. This is why they seek external validation. They want someone, anyone, to tell them they are on the right path. They want assurance that their choices are correct, that their actions are justified. But Sartre would say, there is no external source of validation. There is no higher authority that can guarantee that you are making the right choice. There is only the reality that you must choose anyway. And here lies the great paradox of existentialism. Freedom is both the solution and the problem. You are free to create meaning, but that freedom itself is what causes anxiety. You can never be completely certain that you are making the right choice, because there is no external measure of what is right. There is only what feels true to you, what resonates with your sense of self, what aligns with the future you wish to build. But Sartre would argue that this uncertainty is not a flaw, it is a feature. The very fact that you must choose, that you must take responsibility for your own existence, is what makes life meaningful in the first place. If meaning were handed to you, if there were a predetermined path to follow, then your existence would be passive, mechanical, predetermined. True meaning only arises when you actively shape your own life, when you accept the burden of freedom and move forward despite the uncertainty. So, if you feel lost, if you feel anxious about whether your life has purpose, Sartre's answer is simple but demanding. Stop searching and start creating. Do not wait for certainty, because it will never come. Do not wait for someone to tell you what to do, because no one can tell you. You must decide for yourself, and you must take action. And this is where Sartre's philosophy meets the real world. It is easy to intellectualize existentialism, to treat it as an abstract concept, but the truth is, it applies to every moment of your life. Every choice you make, from the smallest decision to the largest, is an expression of your freedom. Every time you hesitate, every time you avoid taking responsibility, you reinforce your own anxiety. But every time you act, every time you commit to something that feels meaningful to you, you reclaim your existence. Understanding Sartre's ideas is one thing. Living by them is another. If we take his philosophy seriously, then everything we do, every choice we make, every action we take, becomes a reflection of our ability to embrace our own freedom. But how do we actually do this? How do we move from feeling trapped in anxiety to fully owning our existence? First, we must recognize that there is no perfect answer, no predefined path, no single correct way to live. If you feel stuck waiting for clarity, if you hesitate because you are unsure what the right choice is, then Sartre would say you are engaging in bad faith. You are trying to escape your freedom by hoping that the answer will come from somewhere outside of you. But the reality is, no one is coming to tell you what to do. The only way forward is to choose, even when uncertainty remains. This is the first and hardest lesson to apply. Sartre forces us to confront the illusion of certainty. Many people postpone decisions, overthink their options, or seek external validation because they want to avoid the discomfort of making a mistake. But waiting for absolute certainty is a trap. It will never come. You will never know with full confidence that you are making the best choice. And that is okay, because what makes your choices meaningful is not their correctness. It is the fact that you made them. Once you accept this, the next step is to stop living for others' expectations. Society is full of pressures. Your family, your friends, your culture, they all tell you what success should look like, what kind of person you should be, how you should behave. But Sartre's philosophy forces you to question these expectations. Are you living a life that truly aligns with what you want, or are you simply following a script that was handed to you? If you feel anxious about making unconventional choices, if you fear being judged, Sartre would argue that this is another form of bad faith. You are allowing others to dictate your reality. You are pretending that their approval or disapproval determines your worth. But this is an illusion. Your existence belongs to you alone. The moment you start shaping your life based on your values instead of external expectations, you begin to escape the prison of inauthenticity. Another crucial aspect of applying Sartre's philosophy is taking responsibility for your emotions. Many people believe that their anxiety is caused by external factors, stressful situations, difficult people, unfortunate circumstances. But Sartre challenges this idea. He argues that our emotions are not something that happen to us. They are something we create. If you are anxious about an uncertain future, Sartre would say that your anxiety is not coming from the situation itself, but from how you are choosing to interpret it. You could just as easily see the unknown as an opportunity for growth, a chance to shape something new, a space where you can build meaning, but instead you might be choosing to see it as a threat, as something to fear. The key is realizing that you are the one assigning meaning to your experiences, and if you can change the meaning, you can change your emotional response. Of course, this is easier said than done. Taking control of your interpretations requires deep self-awareness. You must start paying attention to the way you think, to the stories you tell yourself about your circumstances. Are you framing challenges as obstacles or as opportunities? Are you defining yourself by past failures or by the potential to grow? Every thought is a choice. Every interpretation is an act of freedom. Perhaps the most powerful way to apply Sartre's ideas is to act despite fear. Many people allow anxiety to paralyze them. They hesitate before making big decisions. They wait for confidence to arrive before taking action. But Sartre teaches us that confidence does not come before action. It comes from action. If you want to escape anxiety, if you want to reclaim your freedom, you cannot wait until you feel ready. You must act first, and the feeling of readiness will follow. Think about the moments in your life when you have felt most alive. Chances are they were not moments of passive contemplation. They were moments of engagement, of risk, of commitment. Sartre's philosophy demands that we move toward these moments intentionally, that we stop waiting for certainty, stop hesitating, and instead throw ourselves into existence fully. This could mean finally pursuing the career path you have been afraid to commit to. It could mean ending a relationship that no longer aligns with who you are becoming. It could mean speaking your truth when you have been conditioned to stay silent. Whatever it is, the only way to escape anxiety is to act despite it. And what happens when you do this? You realize that the world does not collapse. You realize that the fear was worse than the reality. You begin to trust yourself. And the more you trust yourself, the less anxious you become. Because now, instead of being weighed down by infinite possibilities, you are actively shaping them. In the end, Sartre's existentialism is not just a theory, it is a call to action. It is an invitation to live fully, to take ownership of your life, to stop waiting for answers and start creating them. Anxiety is not something to be eliminated, it is something to be embraced and transformed. Because within that anxiety lies your freedom. Within that uncertainty lies the power to define yourself. So the question is no longer why are you so anxious? The question is, what will you do with your anxiety? Will you let it control you, or will you use it as a reminder that you are free? Will you continue waiting for certainty, or will you start choosing despite the fear? Because in the end, freedom is not something you wait for, it is something you claim.